And welcome everybody to another edition of the Brody File. Glad you're with us. Boy, we have a lot to get to. Let's get to it quick. Come on, Wisconsin. Ted Cruz, the big winner. One evangelicals, one non-evangelicals. Donald Trump in trouble, and Ted Cruz is crowing.
3 weeks ago, the media said Wisconsin was a perfect state for Donald Trump. But the hard-working men and women of Wisconsin stood and campaigned tirelessly to make sure that tonight was a victory for every American.
You know, Ted Cruz, we had a chance to speak to him actually a few weeks back. It was in Miami. We were slick, we were hip, we were cool. We were in Florida. We were a little hot, a litlittle sweaty. But Ted Cruz and I had a chance to sit down and discuss politics. Have a look. The GOP establishment, did they create Donald Trump? Did something happen? There was such frustration at the Republican establishment. You're talking about the Washington cartel, but Donald Trump seems to be a creation of what the GOP establishment has done here.
Yes, look, absolutely, although I wouldn't put it just on the GOP establishment. Okay. It's the GOP establishment and the Democrats. It is the Washington cartel. You know, my book last year, A Time for Truth, I talk about the Washington cartel, which is the term I use for the career politicians in both parties that get in bed with the lobbyist and special interest and just keep growing government. And it is the frustration with the Washington cartel that created Donald Trump. Now, here's the irony. Donald Trump is a card-carrying member of the Washington cartel. Donald has said many times in TV interviews, quote, 7 months ago, I, Donald Trump, was a member of the establishment. He's been one of those people buying favors, currying favors. And by the way, let's be clear, he wasn't doing so because of some altruistic desire to promote any principles. You know, for 40 years, he supported open border Democrats. None of that influence apparently did anything to stop their effort to press for amnesty. For 40 years, he supported left-wing Democrats who were pushing for liberal judicial activists who would undermine life and marriage and religious liberty on the court. And so, yes, the Washington cartel created Donald, and what Donald is doing is he is pretending to be an insurgent. Like an actor in a Hollywood movie, he is playing the part of insurgent. But what's amazing, David, is he's also telling us, even as this is happening, that he's lying to us. You know, you look at the last debate where he said over and over again, he needed to be flexible. He needed to be flexible. Now, you and I both know the word flexible is code word in Washington for we're getting ready to stick it to you. Because it always means when someone's flexible, that they're going to cut a deal that favors Wall Street and big business at the expense of working men and women. And even on immigration, Donald Trump told the New York Times editorial board he doesn't believe what he said on immigration. He's not going to build a wall. He's not going to deport anyone. That's just rhetoric for the voters who he thinks are gullible enough to believe it. And if you're frustrated with politicians lying to you, then it doesn't make sense to support a candidate who tells you he's lying to you, he's going to break every promise. And that's why, David, conservatives, evangelicals, libertarians, Republicans are uniting behind our campaign. Because if you don't want to see Donald Trump as the nominee, listen, maybe you like another candidate, but no other candidate has any plausible path to 1,237 delegates. If you want to beat Donald Trump, the only campaign that has done so repeatedly and that can is ours. And so I would say to supporters, maybe you liked Mike Huckabee or Rick Santorum or Dr. Ben Carson. Maybe you like right now Marco Rubio or John Kasich. But at this point, if you want to beat Donald Trump, our campaign is the only one that can do so. And so I want to say, we welcome you to our team. Come, join us, and let us stand together and pull this country back from the brink.
Ted Cruz here on the Brody File. All right, look, let's talk about Donald Trump for a moment, can we? Oh my goodness, what a bad week he had pre-Wisconsin, especially those abortion comments when at first he said it was the woman who should be punished and sending her off to jail. Oh, he had to retract it. Take a look.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
Of course, Donald Trump, not the only one in trouble over abortion, and those comments from him were a problem, but Hillary Clinton, she also had a problem with the abortion issue as well. Look what she said.
The unborn person doesn't have constitutional rights.
Boy, all of this abortion talk, Trump and Clinton, it leads me to a Brody File commentary. Well, look, we could talk about Hillary for a while, but there is no other way to spin Donald Trump's controversial comments on abortion. It was a cringeworthy moment, and there are now lingering questions going forward. Can he recover from it, and what lesson did he learn? Look, the Brody File has a few observations. First of all, let me say, as I was watching Donald Trump answer Chris Matthews' questions on abortion, the scene reminded me of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Matthews was the game show host, Trump was the contestant in the hot seat, and the audience, well, they were surrounding both of them. Now, when Trump was asked what kind of punishment he had in mind on abortion, especially when pressed on whether women should be punished, he should have asked for a lifeline. He could have phoned a friend, I don't know. Better yet, he should have punted the question with the old, I'll get back to you a little bit later on that. The last thing you want to do in that situation is wing it. You don't wing it on abortion. Plus, Politics 101 is that you never answer a hypothetical question. And since abortion is not illegal in this country, the question was a hypothetical one. Sometimes it pays to be a savvy politician. So, can Trump recover from this? Well, first of all, the fact that he put out a statement that essentially retracted his earlier comments is a good first step. Yes, considerable damage was done, but at least Trump didn't dig in his heels on this. His campaign realized he had stepped in it. He tried to reverse the damage. They had no choice. He can ill afford to lose this key constituency. His loyal female supporters, obviously, they're going to stay with him, but it's the ones on the fence that he needs to be more concerned about. All right, when we come back, the anti-Trump super PAC on the prowl against him in Wisconsin and other places. Back in a moment. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. All right, time now for, oh my goodness, that's right, Donald Trump, which means it's time for our segment of the GOP and the Restless. Joining us now, Tim Miller with our Principal Super PAC Senior Advisor. Tim, great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me, David.
Boy, where do we begin? Donald Trump, maybe?
A lot of material.
Yeah, a lot of material. Is Wisconsin and what's going to happen potentially after Wisconsin, is this the beginning of the end, do you believe, for Donald Trump?
Well, look, I think that we have a very long fight ahead. And basically, what Donald Trump would have had to have done to be in position to win this nomination before Cleveland was win the majority of the delegates all the way through. He's going to be far from that in Wisconsin, we expect, on Tuesday. And what you would see is he would then have to sweep all the way through to California. And it looks extremely unlikely that's going to happen. And a lot of this, while we'd like to take credit, has been of his own doing. Mistakes that he's made, comments that he's made that have been totally out of line. I mean, I thought one that hasn't gotten enough attention was the tweet he sent about Heidi Cruz. You know, and that was, I believe, the beginning of all of these kind of mistakes that have created a lot of trouble with him, with women and with Republican primary rank and file. What
do you believe is the inherent theme or issue here with Donald Trump as it relates to some of, you know, everything back to John McCain and the not asking for forgiveness? I mean, there's a litany of stuff, hadn't affected him up until now. It's starting to affect him more. What's been the common theme or the concern that you've had at the PAC here?
Well, sure. I'd say two things. One, it has affected him with the broader electorate. If you look at his general electorate numbers, they've been getting worse and worse, particularly with women. He started with about half of women didn't like him. Now we're up to about 2/3. So that's been gaining throughout the campaign. But look, I think the trend that we're seeing is a lack of respect for, you know, the dignity, the God-given dignity of every human, of every American. And Donald Trump hasn't demonstrated that over his life or over this campaign. Whether it was making fun of the disabled reporter, whether it's, you know, these comments about women like Carly Fiorina, look at that face. You know, these are comments that turn off, you know, a big segment of the electorate. And I think that's what you're starting to see as it's catching up to them, is that one at a time it builds on one another, and I think people get sick of it.
Let me ask you real quick. Once he rode down that gold-plated escalator in June, a lot of folks said, hey, give him a month, give him 3 months. It was the summer of Trump, as we remember, and then the summer of Trump turned into the fall, not the fall of Trump, but the fall of Trump, and then the winter of Trump. And here we are. He's still around and leading the delegate race. Has it surprised you?
Absolutely, it surprised me. I'm happy to admit it, and I think he's defied all of the expectations, and you know, he deserves credit for that. But the reality is just because he's defied expectations to date does not mean ipso facto he's going to be the president. He's not. And what do the polls say for the general election? That he's going to get crushed. I mean, not far worse than what Mitt Romney and John McCain did. States that they won handily, Missouri, Utah, Donald Trump's losing in. You know, in the general election poll in Wisconsin, which should be a swing state, he had 70% unfavorables. So he's in line, if he were to be the nominee, for a very big defeat.
Let me ask you two last questions. A lot of folks want to get on Trump's case, but the reality is people are voting for him. And so why is that? I guess that's my short question. The longer, maybe an analytical view of it is like, is that, what does that say about the folks that are voting for him? Are they buying what he's selling? Are they not getting it? Or is this a diss, if you will, on the voters who are actually, what's going on there?
Yeah, look,
because it does go to the voters.
The first question is easy to answer. Just because people are voting for it doesn't mean that it's excusable. And a lot of his behavior has been far beyond the pale. And we shouldn't just write it aside or normalize it because he's gotten a lot of votes. Because when it comes to insulting, you know, the disabled, saying he's never asked God for forgiveness, I mean, you know them all. I don't have to go through the whole list. We can't start excusing that stuff just because he got votes. What does it say about the voters? It basically says they're so angry with what's been going on in Washington. They're putting it aside because they want somebody that'll shake up D.C. And my message to those voters would be, throughout his entire life, Donald Trump's always looked out for himself. He hasn't looked out for regular people. And if you're looking for somebody to shake up D.C., I would look to Ted Cruz, somebody that basically every establishment Republican in Washington loathes. Right. He's somebody who's demonstrated that he would stand up to what's happening in Washington, whereas Trump hasn't. And hopefully that will win the day.
Very nice. Let me ask you one last question while you're here. 1237, the magic number in Cleveland. Look, is it first ballot or bust for Donald Trump? There's no way on earth he wins on a second ballot. Not going to happen?
I think it's extremely unlikely, and I would point to the evidence of these state conventions. If you look at these state convention battles, Ted Cruz has been winning them, and those are basically a proxy for what you'd see in Cleveland, because the same folks that win those battles end up going on to the national convention. I think it's really tough to see Donald Trump doing better on the second ballot than the first ballot.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that Ted Cruz could win on a second ballot, though. There's no guarantee of that, and then now we're down the road of the Paul Ryan road.
Well, then it'll be real fun.
We'll bring you back for that.
All right, sounds good,
Thanks,
David.
Tim. Appreciate it.
See you, man.
All right, back in a moment with more here on the Brody File. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. All right, now time to talk about policemen and their job that they're doing. Great job they're doing, but let's face it, there are a lot of high-speed chases out there, and police are running through the streets. They're chasing the criminals everywhere, and it gets dangerous in those high-speed chases for everyone around. But a new technology is out there that could change the game entirely. Abigail Robertson with the story.
We've all seen the action when news channels broadcast a thrilling police chase.
You're out. We got to stop. Signal forward. Big time signal forward, Keller.
But we often miss the aftermath, which can lead to fatal consequences and an average of $3 million in damages charged to taxpayers.
There's a lot of fees incurred when you're involved in chases.
These accidents are a leading cause of injury, death, and lawsuits involving police officers.
When chasing, anybody can pull out in front of you. Your brakes can fail. There's a lot of different things that, can cause some type of danger to the deputy and or the community.
John Ferris learned the hard way that in a matter of seconds, anyone can be a victim.
We received a phone call at 4 in the morning, and it was a doctor from an emergency room.
His 23-year-old son, Paul, was on his way home in a cab when a vehicle pursued by police crashed into him at more than 70 miles per hour.
I'm really sorry to tell you this, but your son has been in a horrible car accident, and he's died.
Overwhelming number of police pursuits are started over nonviolent crimes and escalate quickly, endangering the suspect, the policeman, and any bystanders along the way.
The officer pursued the car that struck Paul for making an illegal U-turn and faced no reprimand because, according to state police rules, he was within his right to pursue.
2 or 3 seconds earlier, 2 or 3 seconds later, at the timing of that pursuit, and my son would be alive. I mean, so it's just random. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do after Paul died. So I started researching police pursuits.
He found that on average, one person dies each day as the result of a police pursuit, a third of those deaths being innocent bystanders. An FBI report uncovered that the true cost is probably 2 to 3 times higher than the stated average, because pursuit fatalities are only reported at the discretion of law enforcement. And no government agencies track injuries from pursuits, leaving no information on police officers and bystanders left paralyzed, brain damaged, or suffering from other life-altering injuries.
I'll invest in anything just about that I believe that will keep the deputies safe and our community safe.
In order to cut down on high pursuit casualties, authorities like Sheriff Levitt of Rockdale County, Georgia, are investing in technology known as Star Chase.
I know that this technology has been a great investment. From the times that we've launched this GPS tracking unit, we have had a successful capture rate.
Star Chase allows officers to deploy a tracking device on vehicles without the driver knowing they've been tagged. For about $5,000 per vehicle, officers can secretly but safely catch cars on the run. I headed down to Rockdale County to see this new technology in action.
So here I am playing the suspect, and I've just been pulled over. As the officer approaches my car,
What are you doing? May I see your driver's license?
I decide to run. Little do I know that even though the officer was outside his car, he can still deploy his tracker.
As I think I'm getting away, the officer begins his stealth pursuit, tracking my location and alerting fellow law enforcement where I'm heading. This keeps drivers around me safe, rather than being caught in a high-speed chase.
When you can launch something and you can track it, you can discontinue the chase and just begin tracking the vehicle. You can apprehend the vehicle and or the suspect later.
So far, only a handful of Rockdale patrol cars have Star Chase, but Sheriff Levitt wants more because of its success rate.
We've captured everyone that from the ones that we've launched. No injuries to the deputies and no injuries to the community or citizens.
Most departments rely on decades-old tire spikes to stop chases, but even they are rarely used because of the danger involved, and police must also know where cars are heading.
Trying to deploy stop sticks sometimes is very dangerous, especially if you go to put them out and the car swerves towards you. I mean, I've seen several videos of officers getting struck trying to deploy the spike strips.
Sheriff Levitt admits new technology can be expensive, but says it's nothing compared to the cost of chases gone wrong.
Behind the badges of those that put on this uniform and put on this badge are humans. They walk out of their doors not knowing if they're going to ever return. They walk out of their doors kissing their loved ones, telling them that they love them, and their loved ones not knowing if they're going to ever return back to that house again, because they're leaving that home to protect and serve the people of their city, their county, and this great state. I want the people to know that we're out here doing the best that we can, and all we want to do is just protect and serve.
Abigail Robertson reporting for the Brody File.
All right, thanks, Abby. We're back in a moment. And welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. All right, look, the Obama administration is taking incoming fire from conservatives, even from liberals, and now some female veterans are getting in on the action. And what's her name? I know her name. Amber C. Strong with the story.
In March, Defense Secretary Ash Carter took the final steps in his controversial plan to open up all military roles to women. That includes infantry and special ops. No exceptions. Women would be fighting on the front lines along with their male counterparts. Women would also be able to serve as Army Rangers, Green Berets, and Navy SEALs. And while the idea of a G.I. Jane is glamorized in film, former Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff says the reality of women in combat wouldn't be pretty.
By the VA's own records, women are 3 times more likely to have PTSD than men. Just PTSD. So, okay, let the women do it. Are we prepared to pay out the disability ratings? No. We can't even take care of the men right now.
Opponents also say when it comes to special ops, the role shouldn't be awarded by gender, but by merit.
I believe that there needs to be a mission standard, not a gender standard. When I mean a mission standard, not a gender standard, it means that in order to qualify for special operations, you need to meet that mission standard, whatever that physical requirement is.
Advocates say when it comes to history, women have already proven that they're just as tough as the guys. But opponents say it's about more than equal rights. It's about physical capabilities as well. Critics point to the physical makeup of women, saying the female body is vastly different from a male. And over time, a woman's body would begin to break down faster than a man's.
In fact, studies have proven that the more they train, their muscle actually can depreciate because it is too intense for their bodies.
Secretary Carter defended his decision, saying that by opening these roles to women, we in turn deepen the military talent pool. Former United States Army vet Karina Robinson agrees, saying she credits her success in the military to leaders willing to look beyond her gender.
I was petite, but there was people that believed that in my heart I wanted to perform a mission. I knew God was over watch as a Christian, but time and time again when that opportunity became available, I leaned forward, did my job just as anyone else.
Robinson, who spent 25 years in active duty, including 2 tours in Iraq, says women have served their country under many circumstances, and it's time they be given the opportunity to pursue all the military has to offer.
I think for many, many years, women have been serving alongside combat forces, and to not allow them to integrate is not something we should keep them from doing if they choose to pursue that career field.
And while Secretary Carter admits the beginning stages may be tough, he insists the overall transition will go a long way in making the U.S. military stronger. Amber Strong reporting for the Brody File.
All right, thanks, Amber. We're back in a moment with a final thought. And welcome back here to the Brody File. All right, look, before we leave you, the path ahead. Donald Trump, New York. It happens on April 19th. He's got a few weeks to think about it, but look, here's the bottom line. He's got to recalibrate. Can he change 20%, 25%? Most folks don't think he can. Does he have another script in the playbook? We're about to find out. That's it for this week, everybody. David Brody here in D.C. Have a great rest of the week. God bless.